Okay, we're going to kind of kick this thing off because I have way too much material here, so I'm going to kind of zip through it in case there are any questions. My name is Rick Carnes, and I'm president of the Songwriters Guild of America, and our business offices are in Nashville now. And I live in Brentwood, which is a suburb just right outside of town. And so on May 1st, I was there to experience the Nashville flood of 2010. And I was asked by the Future Music Coalition to come and explain to you what happened in Nashville and how the music community was affected and how we're responding. So the first thing people have asked is, what happened? Because there wasn't a hurricane and there wasn't a tornado. We had a little hail occasionally, but basically what happened was it just rained. In Nashville, the wind usually comes from the west, moving eastward, and we'll have thunderstorms a lot of times, particularly in the spring. They'll come in the late afternoon and they're gone by the night because the wind pushes them past. For some reason, the rain landed on Nashville and the wind started going south to north, and the thunderstorms just kept rolling over the top of us like boxcars. We had, at least one giant thunderstorm every hour, and these were like those major thunderstorms where the rain is hitting the roof so hard that you have to shout over it. I mean, it was just deluge upon deluge, and we get 10 minutes between them and it would start again. And so basically in some areas we got up to 22 inches of rain in 2 days. I know that's like half a year's worth of rain, but I mean, it just landed on us with both feet. I think the average was around 17 inches. And the only warning we got about the flood was that the news on Thursday night said that we were going to have 3 days of thunder showers. And they were correct. They just didn't say how immense they were going to be. So people went out to do their Saturday shopping because they thought, well, this is just normal thunder showers. But when they got out there, they ran into water, and they couldn't go forward because their cars would swamp, and they couldn't go backwards because there were people behind them, and they couldn't turn around, get anywhere because now the water was rising. People then had to desert their cars, and so even the people whose cars didn't drive into the water, you always see the people that drive into the water, and they say, why did you drive in the water? So they couldn't see how deep it was, Well, in this case, this is your typical stranded car. This is what we were seeing all over Nashville. This is about average. And this was I-24. At one point, every expressway going in and out of Nashville, I think there's like 5. All of them were shut down. And I know it's hard to see, but you can see the debris built up because the water just ran over the top of the expressway. And then, of course, all the cars were swamped. People got out and left them. Having to flip through the pages here. And in terms of getting help from emergency services and police, this is the police cars in the basement of the police station. So it wasn't, it was too late to go out and help most of the time anyway because they couldn't drive on the streets, but a lot of the cars just couldn't get out of the parking lot. I was talking about people who got stranded in a car, just sitting there, didn't actually drive into the water, but were just sitting there. These are some people that were at a stop sign, and the water just kept rising, and it got too high for them to get out of the car and walk. And I know you can't see it, but they're on top of a Jeep. And they were stuck there for an hour, and finally the emergency services people got to them, rescue people got there. Speaking of the rescue people, they're going right down the middle of the street. This is, I believe this is police. You can see the stoplight there. I'm wondering if you run a stoplight, and is that, I don't know what the law is, and I'm sure we have a lot of policy lawyers here that can tell you. This is the kind of thing you always see with floods. A lot of people come in, like firemen and police, with a boat and haul people out. I think it's interesting because this was an area that wasn't in the floodplain at all. This is just a suburban street. And the sewers all backed up because there was too much water, and then it flooded the houses. Okay, I've got two maps here, and this is going to require a little bit of explanation. Right here, I'll show you. The blue line, that's the regular river. All these are the expressways, but here's a river. These are little creeks. This is Mill Creek. I think this is the Harpeth River. If you've ever been to Nashville, we have all these rivers. If you've ever been to Nashville, we have all these rivers that connect together and then all run down to the Cumberland. And this is the Cumberland winding its way through the middle of town. This is the west side, the east side of town. And all these red areas, this is how much the rivers overflowed their banks. Now, if you'll notice the Cumberland, like going through the middle of downtown, it was really a mess there, particularly on the east side over here. And this is the actual downtown area that got flooded in here. And then we have the Bells Bend area, the Bellevue area, which really got smacked. I'll show you some pictures of that. But it was really, it started flooding first in the tributaries. And then once it all landed in the Cumberland overflowed. The rain stopped on Sunday night. They said it would stop about 8 o'clock, and I think it stopped at like 7:59. They were incredible at being able to predict that. As this map shows, the Tennessee River runs right through the middle of town, and we have two dams, the Percy Priest and the Old Hickory Dam that aren't shown on this map, but they're up here. They really weren't any help because the water, they were unable to retain the water in the dams because the lakes immediately rose so high that it was going to go over the tops of the dams, or they were going to have to release the water. This is the downtown area more specifically. This is around First Avenue, coming into town, and this is unfortunately, this is like the right downtown where you have the lower Broadway area, where all the clubs are. This all flooded. All of this flooded. The LP Field where the Titans play, it flooded. You know, we got the scene of the field full of water. It was like a big bowl. All of this area flooded. This was mostly industrial. And right in here is a place called Sound Check, where all the musical instruments were stored. So to give you an idea of what that area looked like from the air, this is a container freight company of some sort on the east bank of the Cumberland. This is some sort of toxic waste dump, I'm sure, and all of that toxic waste went into the Cumberland River. And when, I think it was Brad Paisley was talking about his guitars that got ruined, he said one of his guitars had a titanium bridge on it, and that the water was so corrosive that with a titanium bridge on it, it corroded the bridge in one day. This is First Avenue going into town, so as you can tell, the traffic was not a lot that day. Over to the right, try to show you where the riverbank is. There's LP Field, you can see it, and it's across the river. The river is just between this area and that area, and this being first, this all flooded, and it went over into Second Avenue. That's about 12 feet deep there, I'd say. How many of you have been to Nashville? Okay, everybody know where Franklin is? Anybody know where? Yeah, you remember that park right downtown in Franklin? That's it. So even the outlying towns that weren't on the Cumberland got washed away. This is Bellevue. This is a railroad track that runs along the river, and obviously it got run over. I'm interested who took this picture because I don't think I'd want to be standing there. Shows you some idea of the force of the water. It just washed the entire train bed out. Nashville is known as Tennessee is known as the volunteer state. And at one point, the Metro Center, where all the government records are stored now, or at least most of them, county clerk's offices out there, they have a levee that runs along the Cumberland, and it was about to be topped. And while the rain was even still going on, all these people volunteered and came out and sandbagged that levee and kept Metro Center from being flooded and saved all the records. So it just goes to show you when people, even at the last second when there aren't enough sandbags, they managed to stop this thing. This is, I believe that is First Avenue still underwater. That's right along the riverfront. This is Third Avenue, where a lot of historic buildings are. And this is Second Avenue, where the Wild Horse Saloon and all the clubs are. This area back up here, this was dry. So we did, it didn't flood all of Second Avenue, but it flooded mostly where the clubs are, unfortunately. This is the Schermerhorn Symphony Center, the beautiful world-class symphony center that was built over the last few years and unfortunately flooded. It flooded the downstairs up to within 8 inches of the main floor. Of course, they stored all the pianos and the organ downstairs, and they would bring them up mechanically for concerts. So they lost about $17 million worth of stuff. And they were insured for about 10, I hear, so they're down about $7 million. The insurance situation is really kind of bad because, as you saw by those maps with the red areas, every river, every creek, every tributary of any sort of the Cumberland, they all topped their banks. And nobody had any flood insurance unless they were in a 100-year floodplain. Well, they've estimated this to be a 1,000-year flood, so probably 70% of the people didn't have any insurance because they didn't have to have it because they were so far from the water. I don't know whether you can see this very well, but this is the Country Music Hall of Fame. That's the Ford Theater. It flooded up to the second row of seats. And here's the real disaster for the music community. That's sound check, and that's where all the musical instruments were stored. Everybody that tours, all of their stuff was at sound check. Everybody that plays in studios, all their cartage stuff was stored at sound check. And so you have guys like Vince Gill lost 77 vintage guitars. Keith Whitley, I think, lost 44 guitars. Not Keith Whitley, he's dead. Keith Urban lost 44 guitars. Brad Paisley lost all of his hand-built guitars. Everybody lost all their guitars, essentially. The day after, we had Keith Urban on television playing a benefit for flood victims with a borrowed guitar. If you're a guitar player, you might want to avert your eyes for the next slide. This is a $100,000 1952 Les Paul gold-top guitar, completely destroyed. This is Eric Clapton's Stratocaster, destroyed. This is Elvis's microphone from Studio B, destroyed. This is the main stage of the Grand Ole Opry. Needless to say, they canceled the performance that night, and they moved to the Civic Auditorium, and then from there they're moving back to the Ryman for about the next 6 months. They're going to try to get the Opry patched up. This is the Grand Ole Opry piano, ruined by the floodwaters. This is a performer's dressing room at the Grand Ole Opry. Notice the lack of walls in the dressing room. That isn't normal. That's all the walls were torn out because basically they had flood damage. They did, however, have just a moment to take a lot of the historical records and pictures and stuff. You'll see his pictures were saved. They took a lot of stuff and they put it as high up as they could at the Opry. I keep hitting there by accident. So a lot of the Opry stuff was saved, thank God. But of course, the main stage, all the seating, the circle from the old Opry was flooded. They're trying to repair that. This is the Opryland Hotel. Anybody ever been there? Yeah, it's seen better days. They have the WSM radio station out there too, and it was flooded. I don't know the extent of the damage to the radio station because they had a lot of archival materials there. It's hard to tell how high the floodwaters are here, but in this picture, it's easier. This is the elevator, okay? And this is the top of the exit door. So I'm thinking it's about 8 feet there. The Opryland Hotel, the Corps of Engineers told them that it might flood, it might not. And so they sat and waited, and then they panicked and put about 1,500 people in buses and got them out of there just in time. This is the Opry Mills Mall from the north. Let's see. This is the northeast corner of the Opry Mills Mall. I didn't take a bigger picture because there's no way to take a picture of the whole damn mall. It's too big. But as you can tell, the entire mall was wiped out. And now they're trying to assess exactly what they can do about that. And just here's some basic facts and figures. On Tuesday, the river water crested and began to slowly recede. Some areas were still inaccessible. As a matter of fact, on Friday, when I was doing the rest of the research on this, they were still paddling out to some houses. Power was out to 30,000 residents, but most of the electricity held up. Even some of the pictures that I saw of downtown, underwater, the lights were still on in some cases. The bad news was that of our 2 water treatment plants, one of them was destroyed. And so that we were trying to run the entire city on 1 water treatment plant. We got down to 37% of reserves. But they went into half usage rationing, and everybody actually did it. And so we're up to 70% usage now. This started in Memphis, and it crawled across the state. So it really covered an area about the size of New Jersey, and 42 counties within an area. I only could do Davidson and a little bit of Williamson County, but there were 42 counties that were affected by this, and 42 of them have been declared disaster areas. I don't know what the area Katrina covered, but I really actually doubt that it was any larger than this. 18,000 local residents from Nashville have filed for FEMA assistance, and 2,000 were still in shelters. The damage has most recently been estimated at $1.9 billion, but we all know that's just top of the head figures. We don't have any idea how much it's really going to amount to in the end. Let's see. The good news is the water receded, and there's a whole nation. The whole nation can see that Nashville actually pulled together. We didn't have a crisis. You're not hearing about it, on the news. It was a tragedy, but we only lost, I think, 27 people statewide and only 11 locally. So that's kind of astounding when you see those pictures of like the railroad track and stuff, and you understand the water came up so fast. It's kind of unimaginable. I had a friend that was in one of the residential areas that, they didn't have anything around there. There was a little bitty creek that nobody even knew about running by the entire residential area. And what happened with him was he had a guy from about 300 yards down the street call him and say, "Come down here, you got to see this, and don't drive your car." So he ran down in the rain. He got down there, and the water was coming up out of this creek over the swimming pool toward his house. And this guy turned around and ran back to his house. By the time he got to his house, remember, 300 yards down the road, by the time he got to his house, the water was up to his ankles. And he ran into his house. He told his wife and his son, "Get in the car. We're driving out of here." And he, had his wife drive the other car, and then he drove one car. And she wanted to, get stuff and load it in the car. And he says, "No, just get in the car." By the time they found the keys and got in the car, when they pulled out, the water was already up to the grill of the car. They barely got out of there. That's how fast the water actually rose. So when you see people who lost everything in their house, you say, "Well, you saw it coming. Why didn't you get your cars out of there? Why did you?" He said when he pulled out, everybody else was just coming out of their houses to see what the hell was going on, because it wasn't flooding at all 5 minutes earlier, and now water's coming up over their porch into their house. It's important to note that Tennessee's called the volunteer state, and like the day after the flood, we had so many people come out. I think there were like 15,000 people volunteered on the first day. We had the first benefit Monday night, and special thanks goes out to Taylor Swift, who gave $500,000 in one donation. Everybody gave a lot of money, but as much as anything else, everybody volunteered for a thing called Hands on Nashville, where you can actually go and help people pull carpet out of their house and tear the walls out and everything, because that's the first thing you got to do. I mean, you have got to get everything out of there and then spray it down. And like underneath your house, you got to paint it with this stuff that's like $30 a gallon, And there just aren't enough contractors to go out and do that. You've got to do it yourself. And so we had 15,000 volunteers to go out and help immediately. One of the things that was amazing were the way the churches responded. They got there before FEMA did. I mean, while the rain was still going on Sunday, we had one congregation brought out like 1,600 volunteers, just one church, And I mean, they really took people out of their houses and put them in the church and gave them a place to stay, gave them food until they could set up bigger shelters. The music community, they picked up whatever guitars they had and started playing benefits. Vince Gill hosted a local concert on behalf of Music Cares. You're familiar with Music Cares, right? The Grammy. Yeah, okay. And let's see. Music Cares set up a Nashville relief fund designed to provide funds for food and clothing, gasoline, transportation, cleanup efforts, relocation costs, medicine, and other critical supplies. Guitar Center is partnering with Music Cares to assist people, providing emergency financial assistance. A lot of these guys were touring musicians, and all their stuff was at soundcheck, and they lost it all, and it wasn't insured, and now they got to go out and make the money just to be able to buy the guitars to be able to tour. And so Guitar Center is helping them with emergency loans, helping them get at least a guitar in their hands that they can go out and play and make money. Through the Music Rising initiative, the Gibson Foundation has committed to making a $250,000 contribution to Music Care's efforts to support instrument repair or replacement for affected music people. Unfortunately, with the repair situation, I don't know if any of you have ever seen what happens to a guitar when it goes underwater, but yeah, it's... Yeah, and it just destroys the guitar. I mean, every seam in the guitar splits and all the glue comes undone, and it's kind of adios guitar. But that being said, we will pick up and move on. Like I said, the Grand Ole Opry moved into the War Memorial Coliseum, and now it's back at the Ryman. And we've got people who lost their houses, like Jeannie Seeley and some of the artists, and lost all their wardrobe, lost everything at soundcheck, and they're out doing benefits for other people, which is kind of typical for Nashville. So in closing, Nashville will survive. We'll move on. A list of benefit organizations is at Tennessean.com. That's the newspaper, Tennessean.com. But if you really want to help Nashville more than anything else, get on a plane, come down and party at some of the benefits, because we need tourists. We need people to come in town and, spend some money drinking heavily and partying and doing all the things we all do so well. So, and that would be the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, I think we got like 2 or 3 minutes.